Hey, friends, and welcome back to Table 13, the podcast where we tell the truth about what it actually takes to run a restaurant and why most people don't make it. I'm Morgan, GM, prep queen, order wrangler, spreadsheet nerd, and I'm flying solo today to talk about something that every kitchen talks about, but few actually do well: kitchen efficiency. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, yeah, we're efficient, ask yourself this: would your team be saying the same thing? Because efficiency isn't just about speed, it's about the flow, it's about communication, prep, systems, and really consistency. And it definitely isn't just yelling, let's move with purpose during a rush. Okay, we've all heard that. So, first, let's define what I mean when I say efficiency. So, what I mean is the right person is doing the right task at the right time. You have tools and ingredients, and you know where they're supposed to be, and they are where they're supposed to be. Your prep list matches your service flow, and every movement has a reason. No wasted steps, no wasted time, and ideally, no wasted product. If your team is doubling back across the line for spoons, constantly yelling, "Where's this? Has anyone seen this?" Or you're still chopping onions at 5 p.m., you're not efficient. You're just surviving, which is kind of where lots of us live, I think, in that survival mode in a kitchen. And it can be really hard to get out of those spaces. And I think with a few small edits, you can really make a difference. One, prep. Prep is king. I say this all the time. Prep is where you win or you lose a service. If you want to run a tight kitchen, your mise en place needs to be immaculate. That means labeling, dating, consistent containers, knowing how much of each item you actually need based on service patterns. So, we don't guess, we track. We adjust. If you made a 10-liter batch of ranch on Tuesday and threw half out by Friday, you made too much ranch, right? So that's not efficient. That's just waste with extra steps. One thing that I can kind of think of more recently at Hanoi House is that we have been making, a double batch of our curry chicken basically every day. And we obviously realized probably after a week of doing it every day that, hey, maybe we need to do more curry chicken so that we don't have to make it every day and waste that, hour of time making curry chicken every single day. So your pars for how much prep you need is really this living thing that needs to ebb and flow with your service requirements. And, that does take some finagling, but realistically, if you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, or the par list lives in your head, or the prep list lives in your head, that's not great, right? So your prep list should live where everyone can see it, and it should be updated in real time. If you realize today that you need to make a single batch of ranch instead of a double, then you need to go make that edit as soon as possible so that the changes get made, right? So we use Google Sheets here. It's color coded, broken down into things that you need to check, every single day versus things that you can kind of like check maybe every other day. We also had an older version of it, which I think worked just as well. That was basically a list broken down into stations. Some people use, you know, a list of things that is broken down by where the items are in the kitchen. So you're only walking around the kitchen one time instead of just doing circles and circles, right? So we kind of go through our checklist and then we write everything down on a whiteboard. If it's really, really busy and we have lots of people in, sometimes we'll assign people to those prep jobs so we know that they're getting done. But the biggest thing you need to focus on with prep is that someone needs to be in charge every day of who creates and writes the prep list for people. We always leave that to the opener. Sometimes the closer will write notes on the board saying, let's make sure that this is done in the morning, or, hey, I ran out of this. It's always the opener who writes our prep list on the board, which is really important. Number 2, people and stations. So the next piece of the puzzle is assigning people tasks they can actually crush. So picking the right people for the job. If your line cook takes forever on the fryer, don't put them on the fryer on a really busy night, right? That's not training through fire. You're just sabotaging your entire team. So set up everyone for success. You want people to be successful in your business. So if that means that you have someone who is really, really good at prep, then let them come in and just be your prep guy, you know? It's not going to hurt anyone. It's actually going to be better for the employee and for the restaurant. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with giving people tasks that they excel at. It makes people feel good. It makes your employees feel accomplished. So setting up a station is very important, obviously for just ease of service. So if you're constantly doing something and being like, oh my God, I wish I had a pair of tongs here. Oh my God, I wish I had a pair of tongs here every day, then find a way to make sure you have a pair of tongs there. So whether that's coming up with a hook that needs to hang somewhere, or making sure you buy an extra pair of tongs because maybe you just don't have an extra pair of tongs, that will make the system online better and the station more functional so that your staff can flow quickly through service. They always have what they need, and so on and so forth. You want your stations to flow. If you're building a station, you think you've made a good choice, and then all of a sudden the flow kind of gets weird and static, then change it. There's no harm in changing something back to what was working, or changing something that's not working to something that is working. And you know what? If you try it for one day and realize that it's garbage and not working for you, then just go back to the old way and try again. It's not going to hurt anyone to have maybe one day when you're like, oh my God, this is just like not working for me. You got to try to know if it's going to work, right? I think that cross-training people is also very important. So multiple people need to be able to do multiple jobs. And that is just for, ease of training people. It gives people confidence to be able to help when they need to help. But it also makes sure that you don't have people getting lazy in muscle memory. So it's really important to cross-train your people to kind of give them something new to do every once in a while. The other thing I will say about this as well is you don't necessarily need to hire faster people to do jobs. You actually need to build a better system of flow within your kitchen. And then you need to teach people how to plug into that system. So when I say that, I mean, it's easier for everyone involved if when you set up a station or you set up an area of the kitchen, everyone kind of sets it up the same way. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to use the same knife. Not everyone needs to set up, the cloth on one side where the knives go on the same side. If you're left-handed, you want it on the left. If you're right-handed, you want it on the right. Sure. But the idea needs to be the same. It's not the side of the cutting board where the knife goes. It's that there is a knife beside the cutting board that's important. So don't get trapped in the small details, but focus on the larger picture of everyone needs to make sure that there's a knife beside the cutting board. Everyone needs to make sure that there is a tablespoon in the peanuts. Everyone needs to make sure that there is, a container with all the sauce bottles up front. Because then you can actually let your muscle memory take over when you're cooking, and it makes everything so much easier. Number 3, systems. So, real talk, most kitchens don't need 15 apps or 6-hour onboarding video series. But what you do need is a real prep system. So quantities, timelines, expected outcomes. You need clear station setups. Even if that's using, photo diagrams, we literally have those here. It's a picture of a perfectly set up station and people can look at it and be like, okay, I need to replicate that. Makes it easy for people. They don't have to use their brain. Next, we have par levels. So that's a daily par and a weekly par to make sure that people are actually making enough food or not making too much food. You need to have first in, first out. Obviously, everyone knows that. And you need to have a labeling system that everyone understands and a labeling system that is consistent. You don't want everyone writing a different kind of label. You don't want one person putting every bit of information under the sun on a label when all you really need to know is A, B, and C. And then you need to have one person who's accountable for double checking that all those systems got done properly before service. We usually have the afternoon person who comes in. They do a quick reset is what we kind of call it here. Going through, refilling everything, checking to make sure they have everything, looking at the prep list, asking what happened earlier in the day. And they're kind of the point person who resets everything back to how it was before. Maybe you had a really busy lunch and all of a sudden you need to get that person in here to change the mindset or reset everything so that everyone can go back to the beginning, get everything back to normal, everything back to par, and then we can move on from there. Systems are really important. We have lots of systems here. They've taken many, many years to kind of get built, and they're still ever changing. We have things that change weekly almost. And that's not saying that the systems that were there before weren't working. It's just to say that sometimes you have a system for so long and then a new person comes in and they're like, hey, I did it this way at this kitchen and I found that it worked better. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, a light bulb goes off and we can kind of start to do something new. And maybe it does work better. There's no harm in accepting help when someone has a good idea. The other thing about systems is you need your employees to buy into the systems that you're creating. So that kind of touches back on hiring a little bit, but more training. So when you're training people, you have to make sure that the people who are training, so let's say your managers do all the training. The managers who are doing the training need to make sure that they're training everyone the exact same way. So it's almost like creating a system for training the systems, right? You can get lost in a lot of these systems, but I think that the ones you really need to focus on are making sure people are being trained, prep and par lists, station setups, obviously labeling and first in, first out, and mise en place, stuff like that. And then you need to just have a head of the stake who's focusing on making sure that everything is going according to plan throughout the day. And someone to come in and do a reset in the middle of the day, because people who work in kitchens, we know sometimes you need a reset after lunch. Sometimes that's going out for a cigarette. Sometimes that's sitting down and having just an entire can of Diet Coke. You just need that small thing to just reset your brain and get you back into the groove. Finally, number 4. Now, here's a part that no one really talks about when it comes to efficiency, and that is culture. So if your kitchen's chaotic, loud, full of finger pointing, unclear expectations, efficiency kind of falls to the wayside. It doesn't really matter how many spreadsheets or order sheets or diagrams you have. If everyone's just kind of pointing the finger or yelling, you're not going to be efficient. It doesn't work that way. Efficiency really requires trust between employees, a huge amount of communication, and people need to feel when they come into work that if they do make a mistake, they're not going to get fired right away. So a little bit of safety, I guess, is the piece of that. If a line cook feels like they're safe enough to say, hey, I need a little bit more time on that, or, we're out of shallots, you're already ahead of lots of kitchens. I've worked in lots of places where if you say you need, 5 more minutes, people freak out and it just creates this kind of hostile environment and it doesn't work. People need to feel good. They need to have proper communication. They need to be able to trust the people they're working with. And when you're getting to that culture part, again, like the systems, you need the employees who kind of buy into it, especially the employees who are at the management level. The employees who are at the management level, they set the standard. You don't want to go in constantly being like, oh, we need to bring people up to our level. We need to bring people up to our level. No, you want to go in and you want to set the standard and you want to make sure you keep people at that standard. Because if you set the standard of a healthy, trusting, open communication culture, you're going to thrive no matter what, especially if you have your employees buy into that culture as well. And, the other piece of that is you don't want people to be scared, because when they're scared, they burn out and they rush and they make mistakes. They skip steps. And that is where the small mistakes add up and your margin for profit just kind of disappears. So making sure you have a healthy communication and a healthy trust and, a safe environment for people to maybe make mistakes or to take an extra 5 minutes, it really will in the long run make a huge difference in your culture and in your efficiency. So that's all I have for you guys today. I'll go over them again really quick, point form. So number 1, prep. Prep is king. We talked about that. Number 2, People and stations, having your station set up, having people who buy into those stations. Number 3, the systems you actually need. And number 4, the culture you set up in your kitchen. So if you're listening to this and thinking, oh shit, that's totally us. Good. That means you're paying attention. It's not about being perfect. It's about getting better. One system, one process, one clean prep list at a time, right? It's not going to happen all overnight. You've got to do small, easy steps. And if you want help with that, come hang out at the 13 Club with us. It's our new coaching community where Susan and I go deep on all of this stuff. We've got live Q&As, we've got kitchen system setups, we've got staff training, you name it. We are there to help you through this. If you just want to do a walkthrough of your kitchen with us and we can help you, we are game for that. We want to help. So that's all I have today. Thanks for listening, friends. Now go check your mise en place.